So just to give you a bit of an idea, so for anyone who is new to eInvoicing, let me explain a little bit about what it is. So eInvoicing in Australia, it follows a PEPL standard. So that's an international standard that the ATO and the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment in New Zealand have adopted here. And it allows eInvoices to be exchanged between any software to any software. So it's software agnostic, which is a real difference in this. So if we look at the diagram here in corner 1 and corner 4, we've got your accounting package and that of your customer or supplier. And then if we think about it like a phone network, so corners 1 and 4 are a mobile phone, let's say an iPhone or an Android. Corners 2 and 3 are your service provider. So they get the text message that you might enter into your phone to your friend's phone over there. So message exchange is an access point. So we are corner 2 or 3 for some software providers. So it magically gets the invoice from the supplier software into the buyer software. It's all machine readable data. It's not being scanned. It's not being manually entered. It goes in a machine readable format. So I've sort of explained what eInvoicing is, but if I explain what it isn't, because there is still a little bit confusion about what it is and isn't. So it's not an email. So an email, yes, it's electronic, but it's not an e-invoice. It's not a PDF. Again, PDF is an electronic document, but it's not machine readable data like an e-invoice is. It's not a spreadsheet or a CSV, and it's not scanning. So some companies use OCR scanning today. That is definitely not e-invoicing. If we look at why you should use e-invoicing, so if you're issuing invoices to your government customers, it gets to them much faster. So the likelihood of you getting paid faster is much higher. Some government agencies also have faster payment policies in place to pay your e-invoices faster. You have more visibility of your invoices once they're sent. So you can be updated about statuses depending on the capability of your software. So you can have more visibility into that once it actually leaves your accounting package. It's secure. So as an access point, we are accredited by the ATO. We have to adhere to certain security standards. So you can sleep easy knowing that your sensitive data is being handled in the right way. And fourth, it doesn't actually matter what software you or your customer use. So as I mentioned before, it's software agnostic. So you can send an invoice to any of your customers who are invoicing enabled as well.
So basically, instead of someone at the supplier or using their billing software to generate a PDF copy or print a copy of the invoice and sending it to DGPR, they can just do that by a click of a button. So it's much more efficient and less prone to errors, right? The second important factor is suppliers can actually know the issues with the invoices straight away, much faster and much quickly, right? So that's the other benefit, rather than relying a couple of days and waiting for someone from our AP team coming back with issues with the validity of the invoice. They will know it firsthand. The other factor is reduction of lead time from the point it leaves the supplier's billing software to the point it reaches someone in our business who had raised the purchase order and who was the requester, right? So instead of going through the checks and balances through AP, validating the invoice, running the OCR process, and so on and so forth, the invoice can directly land up on a desktop or with someone in the business, checking the accuracy of the content of the invoice rather than the validity. So checking whether the goods and services that were promised have been delivered correctly or not. So I think that's the other benefit, that it's much quicker and obviously leading to the faster payments. We have tried to keep it simple as, and we are prescribed by the ATO guidelines, and purchase orders and bank accounts is, again, something that we would definitely want. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Whatever the supplier is doing today in terms of rendering an invoice should be exactly the same. It's just the transmission of the invoice from their system to our system is what's changing with the invoicing.
E-invoicing is available as part of your MYOB subscription. In Australia, this is going to be through MYOB Business and AccountRight in the browser. And the process for you to getting started is what we will see here with this video. As you can see, I have just landed into the dashboard of my account. So as soon as I log in, I see this screen. And if I go to the upper right corner, I have the sales settings where I can edit a lot of things about my account. But you will see that we have this new section now called eInvoicing. If you open it, you will be able to see a video and help articles that will tell you more about the feature, its benefits, and all these things that we are covering here in this webinar. And once you are ready to actually go ahead and get started using the feature, you can go into the Get Started button. Once I click on this button, you will see that we ask for a few specific pieces of information that we need for the registering of a business. In this case, we are looking at a business name, an ABN, and then the state and the postcode. I enter the information here as I go and grab the ABN that I will be using. Then the last step is a consent for the sharing of that information with Message Exchange, which are partners of ours in the implementation of eInvoicing. And then once I'm finished with that, it's literally just clicking on register for eInvoicing, and that's it. It will take a few seconds for the information to be sent across to the PEPL network and everything to happen, and then you are registered and ready to start using eInvoicing. And just before I jump out of this screen and I go back to the actual usage of it, the only thing that we recommend is that for you to start actually being able to send those e-invoices, that you track those valid ABNs in the contact cards of your trading partners. All right, so as you can see here, I am now registered and ready to trade e-invoices, both sending and receiving. So this is the end of this recording video, which gives me the opportunity to just go back and shift into the actual account that we will be using for the demo. So just so I can actually show how it looks like after I'm done, if I go to the sales settings, once they load, in here, we will now see that I am registered for the usage of the feature. So I should be ready to just go into my normal invoicing view and start sending e-invoices instead. So this is done through the sales menu. I can go to the create invoice screen. And then this one here is going to be super familiar to those that are already using MYOB. The process for creating the invoice is exactly the same as we are used to. What I'll do is that I'll select the Ministry of eInvoicing, which is the contact that we'll be using for the demo today in here. This has been created beforehand for this demo, and I have an actual ABN associated with it. So then I can start entering the details about that invoice that I'm about to create. In this case, I will be invoicing someone for an actual item. That's why I changed the view. And I will be using the item that we always use to please the demo gods in here, the balloons. And what I'll do is that I'll select a sales account I'll be using, and then let's pretend that I'll be e-invoicing them for 5 units of, I don't know, a $3 balloon. Okay, not only that, I can also add notes to that invoice. And as we were talking about the PO number, this would be where it would go. It's an optional field for the actual creation of the e-invoice, so I'll just leave it as is for the time being. Had I been using old invoicing, I would just be able to save this, then do all of those steps that Swapnil covered. Elaborate that PDF and then find a way to make it available to the person that is on the other side and go through all of that process. However, in this case, we are just actually sending an e-invoice. So now we can take advantage of the Send e-invoice button that we have available here. Once I click on this, I should see, yeah, here it is, a pop-up that I can use to validate the information before the e-invoice actually gets created. So I can see all the relevant information about that document I am about to send, and I can also select a template in here. The reason I can do so is because MYOB is including as part of the e-invoice a copy of the PDF that would be sent in previous means of invoicing. The payload is exactly machine readable as Ellen covered, but we just send that PDF in there for the familiarity, just to make the process of the migration a little bit easier. Once you are happy with that, it's literally just clicking on Send e-invoice. The document is now being created. And as soon as it is actually sent, we should see this pop-up disappear and a confirmation message appear on the top of my screen. That should happen any second now. or any second now.
And the other thing is, if you did have other attachments, you saw the little space there where you can drag or select other attachments to add. So that's helpful if you're submitting timesheets with it or whatnot. You can actually add other attachments there as you would for your normal invoicing.
Thank you very much. That's very true. And then this invoice that I created has now appeared on the list of my invoices. We have this E button, this icon in here to show that it is an actual e-invoice, meaning that if you go into that invoice, we then go into the details that I think was Rahul that covered, that we can see the activity history that will show the process towards the sort of the management of that invoice as it goes through those steps. So yeah, there you have it. This is how you register and you send an e-invoice using MYOB.
The e-invoicing capability inside Xero is included in our subscription. So if you have one of the versions of Xero that includes the ability to send an invoice or receive a bill, i.e. you're not using a general ledger just for tax lodgement annually, then you get the invoicing along with that product. So I'm going to show you that process right now. And you'll notice this is a test environment. And again, same reason as Harry mentioned, because the ABNs are validated, because we make sure you cannot register on anything that doesn't match the details you have on the organization file, and it has to be valid or NZBN if you're in New Zealand. I have to do it on a demo environment so that we can show you what's going on. So first piece there is you just go into the bill, you click on receive e-invoices, you get a little bit of information, and then click on register to receive. From here, we've pulled the data out from the organization, which already has an ABN in it, and we'll then go and search for that business information on the Australian Business Register. At this point, we're making sure that data matches what you have inside. You won't see a yes, these details are correct, and the opportunity to confirm it if they don't match. And so you then can't register. We'll hit yes, those details are correct for my test environment. We then ask for some contact detail based on the PEPAL rules. PEPAL actually recently changed this slightly. So what you'll see here is there are 2 representatives being asked for. Very shortly, there'll only be 1 because we actually only need the first contact. And we have a little box there where you can do is the same person. And then sounds familiar, agree to the terms and conditions, complete registration, and it will very quickly come back and show you that is complete. Receive e-invoicing becomes manage e-invoicing, and you can see the details that are registered. And it really is that easy. What I'm going to do now, and also did do a sacrifice to the demo gods this morning, so hopefully it'll work. I need to find Chrome in this list. There it is. So hopefully you see a Xero list of contacts. So the first thing I'm going to do here is actually create a new contact and show you how you do that for the Ministry of e-invoicing. You can see we've spoken beforehand to coordinate, huh? And that's because we don't want to play favourites among the state governments. We like them all. This is the Federal Ministry of e-invoicing, so clearly Scott Morrison must be the minister because he's the minister of everything. And I'm then going to go here on the financial details, and I'm going to put the ABN in and hit save and close. So my next piece on that contact, I can just do new sales invoice. Now what you're going to see here, for those of you familiar with Xero, you'll be aware we actually have 2 UIs for sending an invoice. This is what's called classic invoicing. We also have something called new invoicing. You can move between them depending on which you prefer, but you can only send an e-invoice from the new invoicing screen. So I'm just going to change across to that. And we'll see it's already here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down the bottom and select send as an e-invoice. So as we've designed this, we've tried to make it as close as possible to the experience you have in sending a PDF. So you're not having to change business processes and make dramatic change to the way our customers work. But there is a little thing, and I think all of our government partners have just mentioned, and that's PO numbers and other types of references. So if you look very closely, you will see we add a little thing there for an e-invoice, and that's where you can find out how to add in a PO, or a bio reference was the one that Glenn. So our fallback reference is there. So you can type that in as a reference, but if you've got a PO number, which we will, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you put it in like that. So one of the nice things about the way eInvoicing has grown within Australia and New Zealand is that we are working together with our peers like Harriet and MYOB, and I very intentionally say peers. And so what you'll find is this process of putting PO, there are a few other things that larger businesses might ask for, or government. So tender number, contract number, project reference, I think is the other. There are 5. We've actually all implemented it in basically the same way, which means when the state governments are having to communicate out to their suppliers, they can do so in a consistent manner. And I actually just came off a demo earlier to accountants, another part of eInvoicing week, with another DSP, and the same thing. We're showing that it's done in the same way. And that's something you don't often see in our industry, and it's great in the sense that eInvoicing is only going to be successful if we all work together, and rising tide lifts all boats. So I will go here with my invoice number 90. It's due in 7 days. We really do the same thing. So we're going to get 99 red balloons. And obviously I need a wall buster for those of you who remember what 99 red balloons is. So 150 of them. And so send as invoice. I'm going to hit approve and send. And this is where it differs slightly in terms of the process. So we get an option here. So same thing. We will by default send a PDF copy of that invoice. And we found that very much for the change management, the same as when 10, 15 years ago, we went from paper-based bills to emailed PDFs. There's a bit of change management. People need to get comfortable with it. The PDF is important. There is one thing I forgot to show you, which is attaching files. So I think Ellen mentioned that earlier. I am going to attach a picture, which is validating that we've delivered whatever it is that's needed. This is a picture of my dog, but you know, we have to show with something. And I'm going to do send with invoice exactly the same way you would do that for email. If I now go to send it as an invoice, I get an extra button there to say, yes, I want to send those along. I've also got to include payment information. So this is for precisely the reason that SWAPMIL specified, that governments, large businesses want to do their financial controls. And those financial controls are mapping the bank account details against their master data record. So we'll grab that from bank accounts that you have linked to BankRec. So we've got that validation and verification process going on, and that will then be sent along there. I'll hit send. And again, we're hoping that the demo gods are doing me a favor and this will come back quickly. It did. Now, if at that point in time we discovered that the customer was not on the PayPal network, it would have come up and prompted you for email and to send it as an email as an alternative. And down here, we're going to see I sent out an eInvoice. There's the ABN I sent it to, and it was Demo Corp, and I put this particular bank account number in there, so we can see what's going on. And that is everything to do with sending an eInvoice. It's nice and simple there. I think it takes longer to talk through it than it does to actually do it.